of a shot of winning. We can beat anybody in the world, and I think we're going to win next Sunday.
Welcome to the New York Jets Atlantic Flight podcast. In the last few minutes, the New York Jets have just released the unofficial depth chart, and there have been some surprises, some not so surprised, but hey, this is the New York Jets. This is the unofficial depth chart. It's just been released, and to talk all about this, we've got Ryan and Andy. Hi guys, how are you doing?
Yeah, doing well. Thank you, Gus. Good to be back from the little break and ready to talk some football.
You can smell it, can't you? I mean, we are like, hey, God, let's get this going. Andy, your thoughts, mate? The unofficial depth chart's just come out.
Yeah, like you say, it's perfect timing, isn't it? Just having a look through it, and there's definitely some stuff to talk about.
Oh my goodness. So without further ado, should we just start right from the top? Let's go right from the top and start with quarterback. No surprise. Justin Fields, I think we can pretty much skim through this because I think every man and his dog knows what's coming. So QB1, Justin Fields, QB2, Tyrod Taylor, number 3, Adrian Martinez, and 4, Brady Cook. The chances are Brady Cook's probably going to go to the practice squad and develop there. We all know, we discussed this the other week, you can dress 2 quarterbacks and then have another quarterback that doesn't count in your starting 46 on game day. So Martinez would probably be available as the emergency quarterback. So I think that's probably what we're looking at, isn't that, guys? Who wants to take that first? Ryan, you want to go with that?
Yeah, I think that the likelihood is it'll be Fields and Taylor, and then the other guys will drop to the practice squad because, from what I understand, you can call upon them as the emergency quarterback from the practice squad. Not many seem to take 3 on the roster at the 53 man. So yeah, there's nothing really surprising amongst quarterback, but I think that probably the battle between Martinez and Cook, from what I've seen, is a bit closer than I think we expected. But yeah, Fields had a bad day yesterday, but then had his best day the day before. So I think we'll see a bit of that with the teething issues and stuff that he's had throughout his career so far. But as long as he has more good days than bad, then we'll be rolling.
I don't know how many offensive coordinators he's had since he's been, but it feels like he's had a new offensive coordinator every year. That might even be the case without going fact checking myself here. But he has trended up. Andy, he's trended up. I know Andy's not so keen on Fields as me and Ryan are. But Justin Fields has trended every year since his rookie season. So, albeit very, very slowly, but he hasn't busted yet. So what are your thoughts on Fields this year, Andy? Do you think that he could lead us to 6-7 wins, or how many wins do you think? And how do you think he's going to fit in? Because obviously we've got a rookie offensive coordinator as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm a lot lower on Fields than some other people are. I think my biggest thing with him is I don't really see much ascension with Fields. It's more of a, like when you shake up a container with water and sand in, and eventually the sand kind of settles down to the level it's supposed to be at. That's kind of how I see how Fields has gone throughout his career. And I think last year with Arthur Smith and the Steelers, we kind of saw Fields settle to that level that he's probably the most capable at, which is kind of like what the Jets tried to do with Zach in 2022, where they were just trying to minimize how many mistakes he can make. And so I think you saw his average depth of target come right down. I think it dropped something ridiculous, like 3 yards from his time with the Bears. And I think you'll probably see something similar this year. You'll only really see him throw the ball on things like play action. You're not going to see a lot of drop back passing. And I think probably if the Jets offensive staff and the team around him are really good, I think the team probably tops out at 7 or 8 wins in the best case scenario, probably more likely 5 or 6. But I think regardless of what happens, unless I'm completely wrong, is that the Jets are drafting a quarterback in 2026. So not much positivity on Fields for me, but I think he is going to be the starter this year. Tyrod will be the backup, and then it's really just a discussion about who's leading the Jets practice squad from Cook or Martinez.
Yeah, I will counter his time with the Steelers. When he was put on the bench, I'm not going to say he was benched because actually Russell Wilson was actually penciled in as the starter. But when he got put on the bench, Fields was actually 4-1. So who knows how that season could have finished. But I think as well with Arthur Smith, I don't think Arthur Smith was the right coordinator for someone like Justin Fields. I think he needs a fresh ideas and to play to his strengths. So it's going to be interesting to see what Engstrand comes out with based on what happened in Detroit. So it could be just what Fields needs. Ryan, you're going to say something there?
Yeah, I was going to actually mention the Arthur Smith thing, and so I'm glad you mentioned that. I don't think he's the right kind of coordinator or head coach for someone like Fields, and I think that he proved that in Atlanta and then last year in with the Steelers. So I completely get where Andy's coming from. I I'm more hopeful than anything with Fields. I think that there's been flashes we've seen that we can hope that he will show something. But look, worst case scenario, he does have a bad year, and we are drafting next year in hopefully what is a loaded class. I've already talked about a few guys I like for next year, and I think that if if he's not looking enough like the guy, then we draft the guy because we can't go down the wishy-washy. Is he going to get where we need him to be like we did with Zach Wilson for 3 years? It needs to be, look, has he shown enough? Is he the guy? If not, we draft him.
Mm-hmm. I think we're done on quarterbacks. I mean, it kind of picks itself, doesn't it? Arguably, the better thrower of the ball is Tyrod Taylor, but all round, Fields is a better quarterback, in my opinion, than Taylor. But it is what it is. Justin Fields is penciled in the starter. Behind Justin Fields, we've got our running backs. I argue that we have the strongest running back group in the NFL. And I like someone to argue against that. Breece Hall, Braylon. This is in order. Breece Hall, Braylon Allen, Isaiah Davis. And in at 4, not really a surprise, Kinney and Wangu, who will also is penciled in on special teams as a returner. Is any surprises there, guys? Because we've got Donovan Edwards and Lawrence Tofill also sitting behind those.
I really like Donovan Edwards. I think there's a real chance that he does hang around in some fashion. I just don't know quite how. It probably is that he makes the practice squad, and if he gets taken, then he gets taken. But I would like to see him hang about and be another option for us should we need it.
I thought Zach Kuntz, when we put him on the practice squad last year, I thought no way he clears waivers, and he was there. There's a good chance that he will, if he's not cut, if they keep him on the practice squad, there's a good chance he'll stick on the practice squad. Andy, any surprises there at running back for you?
No, and I think it's actually going to be one of those sad situations where, like you guys say, when we end up having to cut people and hoping that they're going to land on the practice squad, I think this is such a strong room. We're going to be quite disappointed when we see guys get snapped up. People like Edwards probably in one of those teams that have only really got 2 cemented starters. He's probably going to get picked up.
Yeah, I kind of that is the fear. Like Ryan said, he's quite keen on Donovan Edwards. I'm quite keen on Donovan Edwards as well. His last year he was the primary back. Before that he was playing behind Blake Corum. I'm also a big fan of at Michigan. Both now in the NFL. So running back is a super strong asset to this team. We've also got another strong asset in the backfield as well, and he's the only fullback we've got on the team. That's Andrew Beck. I think he's also going to be penciled in at tight end as well. Andrew Beck's going to stick, isn't he? Andy, do you want to take this one first?
Yeah, I think it's going to be quite interesting. Like I say, he's the only one. We don't often have more than one listed, but it's going to depend what happens with the rest of the tight ends. Because if we keep Ruckert, Taylor, and Smart, I think Beck's got a chance to stick potentially, depending on how many wide receivers they decide to roster. Because taking 4 in the tight end room, even if one's a fullback, is quite a lot. So if Ruckert continues to struggle, you could end up with Mason Taylor, Stone Smart, and Andrew Beck being kept on and still taking a couple more wide receivers. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting because, like I say, having a fullback could play in really well to what the Jets want to do in terms of those heavier personnel and some more options for Fields out in the flat. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see if he sticks around.
I think he's lined up all over the line as well. So he's actually lined up as a strong tight end in the backfield. But I also think he's lined up in line with the O line as well. Is that right, Ryan? Andrew Beck?
Yeah, I think the reality is that we will probably play a few two tight end sets. So carrying 3/4 on the roster seems sensible, and I think Beck will form part of that. Yeah, look, Rockets penciled in as tight end one. I don't think that fits. I think it should be said that this is a very early unofficial depth chart. The chances of this being anything remotely in certain areas is probably quite slim. I think Taylor will be tight end one. I think Smart will emerge as the tight end two. And I think that Beck and Ruckert will be used in certain situations going forward as well. Just a little deviation as a former tight end for the Jets and a former fan favourite and certainly a favourite of yours, Gus. I did just see that Kenny Yeboah has just had a little baby, him and his partner, and all healthy and everything's good there. So a guy that I really wish was here this year, to be honest, but
Yeah.
nice that he's having a good time. He's gone to Detroit, I think, hasn't he? But,
Yeah, congratulations, Kenny. Absolutely made up for him. Absolute brilliant person, and I think he's a really good player. Like you say, I would have loved to have been in this team this year because I think he would have stuck. Getting back to what you said, Jeremy Rucker is penciled in at tight end one. We said this just off air before we came on. I think when you look at this unofficial depth chart, you've got the obvious people starting. So you've got Justin Fields at quarterback one. You've got Garrett Wilson penciled in at wide receiver one. Breece Hall running back one. You've got the nucleus of the team. They are all penciled in at the number one spots. And then there's the kind of, is there or isn't there a competition kind of situation going on as well? So you've got like the Jets are still running with this story about Josh Myers and Joe Tippmann, who's going to be centre. I cannot think in any universe where Josh Myers is better than Joe Tippmann at centre and actually starts, but deviating a little bit. So we've got Jeremy Rucker listed at tight end one. I think the reason why that they do this is it sends a message to these other players that haven't been performing very well. You're listed here as number one, and it's kind of it gives them a little boost. And then on the flip side of that, for someone like Mason Taylor, who's now listed at tight end two, it kind of lights a little bit of a fire underneath them as well. Andy, would you think that that's probably something to do with it, or do you think there's something else going on there?
No, I just think we're seeing a lot from this new coaching staff that they're prioritising competition and just letting guys know that nothing is to be taken for granted. If you don't perform, if you don't put the effort in, if you don't play with the kind of effort that Glenn and the guys want to see, that no one's position is completely certain.
Yeah, I think you're right. That is the mantra that's been going on, isn't it? If you've been watching the practices, a word that keeps coming up from Coach Glenn is tempo, 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 tempo. And, and the intensity's there. Quinnen was talking to Kay Adams this week, talking about the intensity and how it's good to be coached again. And we keep hearing this as well. It's a little bit worrying and a little bit sad that we keep hearing about players that keep saying along the lines of it's nice to get coached again, because you just think to yourself, well, what the hell's been going on for about the last 2-3 years when you've got players that have been here for that time now turning around and saying it's nice to get coached. Ryan?
Yeah, I mean it's not anything I think we're surprised by though, is it? Because I think by the end the writing was on the wall with the discipline never really changed, the accountability never seemed to come. We had guys that were hanging about the roster despite making umpteen mistakes. So it's nice that there is now this feeling of that. I don't really like the throwing of the shade towards Robert Saleh because ultimately these are also professionals and they are paid to do this job. So actually, if you haven't got enough about yourself that you can discipline yourself and be accountable to yourself as well, there's probably a bit of a problem there. And some of that's naivety. I get that when they're new coming into the league, they don't know how the NFL runs. But I thought it was good that Tony Adams stepped up the other day and actually said, you know what? Yeah, there was accountability issues, but we were being told what to do and we didn't do it.
Yeah.
So I think there's a bit of 6 of one, half a dozen the other, but I'm really excited by the moves that we're seeing from the current coaching team. They're backing themselves to coach these players as well. And I'm excited to see what they can do with some of the guys we probably thought couldn't stick around.
So just finishing off on the tight ends. So as it stands, because this is the unofficial 53. So what we're seeing here is Ruckert, Taylor, and Stone Smart, and then you've got Neil Johnson and Zach Kuntz that will be on the practice squad. So do we think that either Zach Kuntz or Neil Johnson will be let go, or do you think they will go onto the practice squad? Andy, do you want to take that one?
To be honest, I don't think Kuntz has really showed anything since he got here. Since what was he at the time? Was he a 7th-round pick?
I think he was undrafted.
Was he?
Yeah, pretty sure he did the FA, yeah.
Okay, remember that. But yeah, I don't think either of them have really shown anything at all. And when you think about some of the other players who are going to be hanging around, we talked about the depth of the running back room at the moment. Probably a couple of wide receivers you want to see hang around. I can't see either of them sticking around.
It's such a shame because he has. I mean, that draft. I think it was it the 2022 or was it 2023 draft? I think it was 23. His RAS score was just through the roof, and that year everyone had really high RAS scores, and he was one of them. And he's like rated one of the best tight ends RAS scores ever in the NFL. I don't mean that year, I mean ever. So you've got all this athletic ability. You're 6'7". You can jump to the moon. You've got arms that go on forever. So you could have someone throwing to the back end of the end zone, sort of like 10 feet in the air, and it wouldn't be a problem just pulling out of the air. No one can defend that. No one can defend that. But he hasn't got it between the ears. So it's such a shame. And we go on about this all the time. If you can have all this athletic ability, but if you haven't got it, if you can't learn the playbook, you're not going to get on. And which brings us on to, we'll go to wide receivers, because there is a surprise listed at the wide receiver position. We all know that Garrett Wilson's going to be wide receiver 1, but there's been a bit of a surprise. Ryan, who is the second receiver behind Garrett Wilson?
Interestingly, Corley being listed behind Wilson makes me think that actually they're looking at Corley's role being very different to what I think we anticipated it would be last year. If that sticks, then fantastic. And look, we know I'm a Corley stan. The show, we're Corley fans, and I think he has something serious to offer this. But I think actually it's more interesting that we're seeing Lazard listed in a starting wide receiver position, because I actually think that there's still a chance Lazard does get traded.
Yep.
I think if it comes to cut downs and he's on a 50-50 flip with, let's argue, Brandon Smith, let's argue Malachi Corley, whoever that may be, I think they pick up the phone and say, look, does Rodgers want his pal? Give us a 5th, a 6th, or a 7th, whatever it might be, and you can have him.
And for the training camp that he's just had as well, I've got a list of stock up, stock down, and he's in my stock down. He has not had a good camp at all. And you'd think a veteran of his standard would know what's expected coming into camp. I don't know. Maybe Father Time is catching up with him.
I feel like it was the same last year, though. He was playing football more than he was catching footballs.
Yeah, that is a good point. But we on the top level. So wide receiver 1 on the first list, you've got Garrett Wilson, Malachi.
Are we assuming that this is almost like a slot?
Yeah. So second pick. So first, so wide receiver 1 is Garrett Wilson. So on the other side, because on the depth chart it lists 3 firsts. So you've got Garrett Wilson, Alan Lazard, and Josh Reynolds. Personally, I think Josh Reynolds will be wide receiver 2. If this is the final, if this is where they stick, then Alan Lazard is going to be playing the slot, which will probably mean him utilizing him more as a blocker, on screen passes and things like that. Which, to be fair, he's pretty good at. So I'm not that. If they played Alan Lazard in the slot, I think it would be a little bit of a waste putting him in the slot if that's all they're going to use him for, just blocking. Because you've got people like Arian Smith that could thrive in the slot. Even Garrett Wilson would thrive in the slot as well. But does Alan Lazard make the team? Andy, do you think Alan Lazard makes this team, or has he gone like Ryan says?
In a perfect world, I don't want Alan Lazard anywhere near this team. But you look at the depth chart, and like you say, at the moment, Josh Reynolds is wide receiver 2, which is a poverty position to be in because I like Josh Reynolds a lot as like a wide receiver 3, 4, maybe. But then having him as wide receiver 2, then having to rely on Alan Lazard, Brandon Smith, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley, Arian Smith, it's not my favourite position on this team at the moment outside of Garrett Wilson. But I think Josh Reynolds, I'd rather see what someone like Brandon Smith has got this year than watch another year of Alan Lazard dropping passes. So I'm hoping he moves on, whether it's a trade or just outright being shown the door. I prefer him not to be here.
Yeah. So I'll list the number 2s. So we've got Malachi Corley, Xavier Gibson, and Tyler Johnson. Getting back to my stock up, stock down, the wide receivers I've got listed as having stock up this last week is Brandon Smith, Jamal Pritchett, Garrett Wilson, obviously, Arian Smith, and on the cusp having quietly a good camp, but not uprooting any trees, Quentin Skinner, Josh Reynolds, and Tyler Johnson. So the wide receiver 2s we've got Tyler Johnson, Xavier Gibson, Malachi Corley. I think Malachi Corley is a little bit of a surprise because at the beginning of camp, he wasn't getting it. I'm not quite sure how he did the back end of this week. So he was a little bit of a surprise. That's why he's not on my stock up. So can we talk about Xavier Gibson? We know
talk about him leaving.
Yeah, I think I cannot see Xavier Gibson. He didn't do much last year in his role, whether or not that was coaching or him or a little bit of both. But so he's penciled in as wide receiver 2 at the moment with 2 others. But he's also listed in special teams as being the punt returner and kick returner, which we'll get to. And there's some people behind him that are seriously good, and I don't think it's just my opinion, better. So does it I'll go to you for this first, Ryan. Does Xavier Gibson make this, or is this just fluff putting him in at wide receiver 2?
I think he's on the bubble. I think they're probably saying to him by releasing this, similar to what you said earlier, you need to show us more. Otherwise you are probably in danger of losing a role here. I think that looking at it, like you said, Pritchett's having a bit of a good time at the moment. Brandon Smith's showing flashes. And to go back to Corley again, yes, poor start, but it seems like he did start to make a few bigger plays towards the back end of the week, a couple of contested catches, a little bit of yak, a bit of what we expect to see from him. So I think that absolutely similar to what you said earlier, I think he's on the bubble, and I think this listed as number 2 is that you need to show us that you can be a starter or you're going to be in danger.
Mm-hmm. I do think, before I come at you, Andy, I do think that this coaching staff are making a point of putting square pegs in square holes and round pegs in round holes. So in other words, they're tailoring a lot of the stuff so far, what we've seen, into what a player's skill set is. And I've got some little notes here as well. This sprung to mind. This is stock up. So Aaron Glenn and the coaching staff, I thought, have done a brilliant job this week. Absolutely brilliant. And one thing that really stuck out to me is how Engstrand is challenging Wilkes' D, even though he's a rookie offensive coordinator. And don't forget, Wilkes was a head coach as well. And then Wilkes responds with how the D keeps having to change its deeds to keep up with Engstrand. So it's almost like the offense is kind of trying to lead the defense in what to do. But as we know, every training camp, it always happens. Don't read too much into it. Everyone's saying that the offense is a bit slow and the defense is ruling them. That happens every year in every team. The offensive side of the ball is a little bit more difficult to pick up than the defensive side of the ball. It's the defensive side's reactionary. So, but Andy, you got any thoughts on that?
On which part? So it goes on the defense and offense, or back to the wide receivers?
Oh, but sorry, mate. You can comment on either. Xavier Gibson, is he going to make it, or is it just going to be a bit of fluff? And how do you look at the coaching staff and what they've done? And then I'll come to you with that, Ryan, as well. Same question about coaching staff.
Yeah, they just finished up on the wide receivers. I think you're right. I think looking at this stage of like the wide receiver depth chart, you start to look at what the special teams list looks like, and with them listing Gibson, Pritchett, and Smith as kind of the competition for the punt return posts, they're kind of telling them that of those, we're not going to carry all three of you, that there's probably going to be some cut down there, and probably Gibson, like you say, he's flashed here and there, but it's never really been that impressive. Smith will definitely stick because they took him in the fourth round, whether we like it or not. And then Pritchett, it's kind of up to him to make the case, I think, between him and Gibson and see who hangs around at the end of it. And when it comes to Corley, I think the other thing I look at with the depth at wide receiver is in training camp, who are you catching passes from? You might be flashing and making good catches, but are you catching passes for the first team? Are you catching them from Tyrod? Or are you splitting the reps that Cook and Martinez are getting? And at the moment, it feels like every time I hear about Corley, he's catching passes from Cook or Martinez. It's never with Tyrod, it's never with
Right.
Fields, and unless there's been something I've missed.
No, I think that is a really good point that you bring up, and that's really valid as well. Absolutely valid. Just before I get to Ryan, we're going to talk about O-line in a minute. Andy, can you see any surprises at wide receiver hanging in there? Because as I say, on the up, Brandon Smith has had a really good camp. So has Jamal Pritchett. Ontario Wilson, haven't really heard much of his name getting called. Quinton Skinner has been a little bit bubbly. Dymere Miller as well. And I must just add this as well. Listed as the fifth wide receiver is Irv Charles, but as we know, he's on the PUP list at the moment, physically unable to perform. So there is a chance that he might be in the special teams as a gunner, which he was excellent at. But if some of the new guys are good at it, we could see Irv Charles leaving, which would be sad. But if he is leaving, it means because someone better than him is coming. So it's all good. It's all good competition. But original question. Can you see any of these journeymen, not really journeymen, but these young guys coming in and stealing a position?
I think it's.
Sorry, Ryan.
Go ahead, Andy. Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I really hope to see Brandon Smith stick. It's been good to see him show up in camp a little bit because I think it feels like forever since the Jets have had that kind of bigger, stronger wide receiver on the team and for it to be somebody decent. And I think that's something we've been missing for a while. So I'd really like to see him stick.
Yeah, I think in the run up to all of this, we all wanted Besh because we wanted a guy that was able to go up and grab a ball and win those contested catches. So I think we're going to see a lot from preseason that's going to tell us more this time round than maybe previous years. I think seeing them in competitive action against other teams that maybe they're not so familiar with and stuff, I think that's going to tell us a lot more on this wide receiver group. Normally, I wouldn't buy too much into the preseason games, but actually given outside of probably the first probably the first two wide receivers, to be honest with you, I think there's a lot of competition still to be had. And I think what Andy said about the special teams aspect as well, I think it is going to be one of those guys, one of Gibson, Pritchett or Smith that adds on to it. I think Keeney and Wangu is going to be there, so I think one of the others will go with them. And I think, again, that can come back to one play in an actual preseason game. Who knows? I think Gibson's been living off a reputation. He's a nice story.
Mm-hmm.
But look, we know I want to see Malachi Corley there, but the reality is if it's one of Pritchett, Skinner or Smith, I'd still be pretty happy because I think they're young guys. They've come from very challenging starts to the NFL, and it's a nice story. And I think reality is we probably go into week one against the Steelers, and if Alan Lazard is there, then the first four are probably Tyler Johnson, Josh Reynolds, Alan Lazard, and Garrett Wilson in some combination. But yeah, I think there's a chance for at least one of the guys that's lesser known to latch on.
I just want to put a footnote on this wide receivers before we move on to the O-line. Arian Smith, who apparently can't catch, has been catching pretty much everything. And when he has got the ball in his hands, he's been absolutely cooking the secondary. So watch out. It's starting to look like Arian Smith was a really, really smart pick when everyone was shaking their heads in the draft. So it still remains to be seen. But
I think Timmy made a really good point with that, though, didn't he? Like that we were looking at it, and it was right for everyone to question. When the guy had the drop rate he had, everybody was right to question that. But Timmy was totally right in what he said. Is when he went back and looked, what we'd all forgotten that he was being thrown to by Carson Beck.
It's really true.
We'll see. We'll see how he does.
So let's move on. Ryan, do you want to take it away? We're just going to skim over the O-line because I think, again, a bit like running backs, it kind of picks itself. There's a couple of little surprises in here. Again, I will say that it's the cold competition thing that Aaron Glenn, AG, is introducing. So I wouldn't read too much into the second and third tier. But hey, take it away, Ryan. What have you got?
I think the second and third tier is probably where the more surprises come from. We know that the best version of our O-line is Fash, JS, Tip, AVT, and Membu. That's far and away on paper our best O-line. But interestingly, that Max Mitchell is slightly ahead of Carter Warren at the moment. I think we all thought that Max Mitchell would probably get cut. I'm pleased to see Xavier Newman is second behind AVT. I think Josh Myers will be the backup centre, but I think we're more likely to see if there is an injury. We kind of discussed this in our group chat the other day. We're more likely to see if there is an injury at guard. We're more likely to see Titman get pushed out and Myers come in at centre, because I think actually Titman is a better backup guard with Myers as a centre than what Titman at centre is with, say, not Max Mitchell. Let's say Laval or Newman is outside him. Does that make sense?
It does. I would also add in that, sorry, Andy, I would also say that Xavier Newman, I think, is a fairly capable centre as well. We saw that a couple of years back when he came in literally off the street. Andy?
Yeah, I think you're right. That having that versatility that Newman and probably Myers brings in will be really good to have on the depth chart. And it's probably the only battle you're probably looking at is between Carter and Mitchell to see who sticks around. I think the rest of the guys are pretty much locked.
Do you think, Andy, the reason why Mitchell is second over Carter Warren is his versatility? I mean, I think Carter Warren is a better player than Max Mitchell, but Mitchell has got experience playing different positions. The versatility, which you just hit on.
Possibly, yeah, that could be the reason they've decided to keep him, well, to list him a little bit higher at the moment. But yeah, it's neither of them have shown as much since they got here.
It's interesting that Leander Wiegand, who set that draft record, was it? I forget how much he was actually. Was it £338 or something? 38 times or something ridiculous. But he is listed as third as well. So he is what do you call it? He's one of those. What do they call them? The world program.
The international player pathway.
International player pathway. That's the one. Had me struggling there. But he's quite interesting. He's a rookie. He's 6'5". He's originally from Germany. He's 25 years old and he's 291 pounds, listed at 291 pounds. I'm sure he's a little bit heavier than that. That's when he came into the league, but he's been in the States now for a few weeks, so I'm guessing he's put on a couple of pounds there. But it's interesting he's listed at third. Guys, you got anything else on this O-line? As I say, it picks itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, nothing else from me, to be honest. I think it's solid.
Andy?
No, same.
Andy, do you want to kick us off with the DBs? Because I think you are quite a fan of our DBs.
I am, yeah. It's really good to see us have some actual, and like we talked about with the running backs before, it's nice to see a position where we've got some probably tough decisions to make. Because obviously you've got Sauce Gardner and Michael Carter who are going to be locked into their positions. Then obviously you've got a lot of interesting players. You'd imagine that Thomas will be sticking around, given the fact that he was taken in the third round to fill some sort of role. But I think everybody, and I think you brought it up on Twitter earlier today as well, Gus, about Quantez Stiggers
Yeah.
and keeping him around. And I think a theme for me, or the hope that I have got for Glenn and this staff, is that they give the young guys some reps more so than we saw with the last staff. Because obviously last year we saw guys like Sheffield getting snaps over Stiggers when he's just a journeyman jag, really, who isn't going to be contributing much to this team. And Salah and co very much kept the rookies away from the team as much as possible, which was always baffling and frustrating. But I'm intrigued to see how they put all this together, because obviously they gave a big contract to Brandon Stevens as well, and they've listed him on the depth chart as the corner opposite from Source. So any thought that anyone had of him moving into a slightly different role are probably put to bed a little bit now with seeing this. But I think a good starting point of Michael Carter in the slot in the nickel with Source and Brandon Stevens either side while the rookies come through it's a decent cornerback room for sure.
It really is. Ryan, do you want to carry on this? That is, spot on. I can't disagree with any of that. Your negativity isn't coming out yet, Andy. You must
Not on
work
the
harder.
defense, no.
Ryan.
Yeah, I think we love MC2, don't we? Fantastic player.
Underrated. Totally underrated.
Probably the best nickel corner in the league, potentially. Source is still up there, top three, maybe top two. And Brandon Stevens, Brandon Stevens is an interesting one. He's divided a lot of opinion, but they brought him in because he can keep with anyone in the league in terms of receivers. He can track them. The issue is he can't make the play. Now, if they can coach him to make the play on the ball, then we've got a stud. If they can't, we've got AZ Thomas in behind. That's the reality, and AZ Thomas probably will be the future, maybe before the end of the season. But Quantez Stiggers, I love the story of the way he came to the team. Really wanted him to get some more game time last year than he did. He's been working hard the off season. I think he latches on the 53. I think he's good enough to be able to step in and do a job if anybody goes down or anybody's needing respite during a game. So I think that I think he sticks. I really like this cornerback room, to be honest. I think it's one of our stronger areas. And again, I'd probably put our cornerback room up with any of the others in the league out there at this point.
Yeah.
Especially having seen AZ Thomas, I think he looks every bit. He's raw still, but I think he looks every bit capable of being a stud for this league.
Yeah, I'll go with Source. I'll start off with Source. Top three corner, I think he's the top corner in the league. And okay, he had a down year last year. Got some unfair flack, I believe, from a section of Jets fans, a minority of Jets fans. You've got Aaron Glenn is his defense through and through, ex-corner. What is getting passed on behind the scenes, God only knows, but I think he's going to bring the best out in Source. He'll be all, in my opinion, hot take, Sauce Gardner will be all pro, cornerback one, come the end of this season. Absolutely no doubt in my mind. This defense is going to be athletic. It's going to be nasty. We're going to blitz a lot. We'll talk about this in a minute. It's a slight problem at the moment, is edge at the moment, but we'll get there. But getting back to Quantez Stiggers, I love Quantez Stiggers. I love where he's come from. He's come from the CFL, in case you didn't know, which is a bigger field. It's wider and it's longer. Not by much, but when you're talking about a game of inches, it matters. And he can cover ground, this guy. He can really, really cover ground. And why I think Quantez Stiggers will stick and why I think he's going to have a bigger role in this defense than he has done since he's been here is because he can switch from man press coverage to zone. And he's good at it, and he can pick it up. He's smart. He's got it between the ears. Getting back to Azariah Thomas, our draft pick. Well, what was he? Number 3, wasn't he? Third round pick.
Third rounder, yeah.
Again, see, we picked up Azariah Thomas, and he was due to have gone in the second, but we picked him up in the third. So if this coaching staff realised that we were going to have got Azariah Thomas, there's a good chance that we wouldn't have given such a big contract. We might have still got him for Brandon Stevens. We might not have paid as much as we did for Brandon Stevens. However, I really like the Brandon Stevens signing even more since we've picked up Azariah Thomas, because it means that we don't have to throw Azariah Thomas into that role just because he's projecting as being a starter. We can ease him in. I agree. I think that he will be a starter at some point during the season. I think it's probably going to be sooner rather than later. He has been excellent in training camp. His name's getting called a lot. He can stick with receivers. I mean, okay, the only elite receiver we've got at the moment is Garrett, but you can only put what's in front of you. But he's played well in training camp. So the one name that sticks out to me as being a little bit out of place, and it's really quite sad because I think he's a good player as well, is Jarek Bernard-Converse. So this guy has played corner and he has played safety, and we'll get to this in a minute. Andy can kick us off with the safeties as well. Jarek Bernard-Converse. So he's listed as a cornerback and he is playing as a cornerback. I think with how the corners are now loaded, it would have made more sense for Jarek Bernard-Converse to go back to safety. But then you look at the safety room and it's loaded. So our secondary is ridiculously talented. And wow, take us away, Andy. Who have we got in our safety room? And we've had some lovely surprises. Just before I'll let you get to it. In my stock up for the defense, I've got Cisco, Adams, Malachi Moore, and Jarius Monroe as all having stock up this week. Can you talk us through it, Andy?
Yeah, it's nice to see after the last couple of seasons. It's a safety room that you can be excited about. I think with having guys like Andre Cisco, who obviously drafted really highly by the Jags a couple of years ago, didn't quite work out. Tony Adams, who's been, he's been solid when he's been here, not the most exciting player. And then you got Malachi Moore, obviously the big draft pick from a UK point of view this year with the International Fan of the Year, Olivia getting to pick him at the draft.
Yay.
Or mount his pick. Anyway, I should say she didn't actually pick him. But he looked really good in training camp. And Isaiah Oliver, a solid veteran who plays a lot of special teams as well. I think at the moment they've got down, haven't they, Cisco and Adams as the starters. I don't see it sticking that way when the season actually gets here. I think it's definitely going to be more exciting play than we've seen in the last couple of years. I can see it being exceptionally high variance, especially with one of them being a rookie. But Cisco and Moore would be a lovely starting tandem for me.
Yeah, Ryan.
Yeah. I mean, we spoke about it when we signed him. I was really excited about Cisco. I think Cisco and Adams will be the starters initially. I think Adams is another nice story. The way he came in as a UDFA and proved himself, earned himself a place on this team. In what admittedly was a weak room for us for pretty much the whole Robert Saleh tenure. And Malachi Moore looks really exciting. Isaiah Oliver is the Swiss Army knife, though. I really like Isaiah Oliver. I think he did some really nice stuff last year. Came in when he was needed, when he was called upon, and he did his job. And he did his job to a standard that was acceptable and beyond at times. This room at the moment, I mean, it's just all across it, isn't it? It's cornerbacks and safeties. We've never been so fortunate at this position in my time as a fan. And I really like that group of four. Jarius Monroe, I think he's got something to offer. I don't know if he latches on. That's the reality, because I think once we get into cut downs, I think he probably will be practice squad. And I think Isaiah Oliver's versatility will get him a spot in this roster, because he has operated at nickel cornerback before, and he has jumped in both safety positions. So, but yeah, I'm most excited about Cisco, and I think Cisco and Moore as a tandem, long term, is something that's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think the starting two will eventually be Cisco. Again, he's played really well in training, done really, really well. I think the two are going to be Cisco and Moore. Tony Adams, let's not forget, Tony Adams, like many players last year, I'm not going to single Tony Adams out. There were a lot of players last year that did not play well at all. and I think we know what was going on behind the scenes. I think players just gave up. I think that's slightly unforgivable as well, but what was going on behind the scenes, we'll never know. So it is what it is, but it's nice to see Tony Adams. I was high on Tony Adams at the start of last year and the year before. I think he played really, really, really well. He had tons of upside, and he's had a really good camp. He's pulled his socks up, and he's now got himself back into contention. So I think that the safety room will be Cisco, Moore, Oliver, and Adams at the moment. But it wouldn't surprise me, after what I've just said about Tony Adams, if Jarius Monroe does push Tony Adams for a backup role at safety. But let's also not forget that the defenses that Aaron Glenn was running in Detroit, they quite often used 3 safeties on the field at any one time. So there is a chance that we might even go with 6 safeties. So Dean Clark being the 6th safety. So just bumping back a little bit to the corners. The other 2 that we didn't mention is Chris Boyd and Ryan Bump Cooper. There's got to be a place for someone called Bump Cooper on the team. So, but that's our secondary, guys. And as you both have alluded to, that is a really good secondary, isn't it? So without further ado, we'll go to linebackers. Ryan, do you want to start off with the linebackers?
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously listing 3 linebackers. I don't know how many 3 linebacker formations we go with in reality, but your guy McCrary Ball's there. Sherwood and Williams, Quincy of the 2 are pretty much shoo-ins. I think they're going to be a really fast, athletic set of linebackers. They're going to be a lot of blitzes. Interestingly, I think seeing McCrary Ball there, Jamin Davis and Zaire Barnes and Kiko Maragoa, they're probably the ones that I think are on the depth behind that. I don't see Jamarcus Weston making it unless it's special teams, and I've not seen enough of camp to know whether he's doing much of anything at the moment. And Boog Smith and Jackson Sermon, again, not really names that I've heard anything of in this camp. So yeah, I think I don't think there's going to be much in the way of surprises on that room. I like what we've got as starters. I'm okay with what we've got as depth, but it is a room that I would probably like us to address next year if they don't step up.
Yeah,
outside of.
I don't think that this this staff at the moment, I don't think it's going to be like Joe Douglas. Oh, well, I know this guy's not playing very well, but I drafted him and I want to give him every opportunity. I think if the rookies don't perform, I think they'll be gone. So I was a little bit, everyone that knows me knows I love Marcelino McCrary Ball. I think he's such a good talent. He is slightly undersized as a linebacker. So seeing him come out listed as a starter, I'm taking it with a grain of salt, because Jamin Davis, in my opinion, is a better linebacker than McCrary Ball, but McCrary Ball is really good at special teams. Kiko Maragoa, I think he picked up an injury during training camp. Didn't really hear too much about him, but I think he will stick. I think the backups will be Davis, Maragoa, Barnes, and possibly McCrary Ball on special teams. But if Maragoa is any good at special teams, that could see McCrary Ball getting cut. I hope not, but may the best man win. Andy, got any thoughts on these linebackers?
Yeah, I was really surprised to see McCrary Ball's name there as the 3rd linebacker. But yeah, they're obviously seeing something that they like from him. Like you guys, I expect them to keep a couple. I expect them to have at least 5 on the roster, just because it's a core special team per position, so they get a lot of reps, take a lot of knocks and hits. And I do think we will see quite a few 3 linebacker sets from this coaching staff, just in terms of how they like to do things from what we've seen in the past. So yeah, I think Williams and Sherwood are the obvious starters, and then Maragoa, McCrary Ball, and Davis. Yeah, I think I see it pretty similarly to you.
I think why we're seeing 3 linebackers listed is because I think Quincy will just be used as like a rover, so he'll just be all over. He'll be a lightweight edge, if you like, he'll be going lined up all over the place. I think Jamie Sherwood will predominantly be the Mike backer. McCrary Ball, not quite sure what the crack's going on there, but I feel that we will most likely be using 2 linebackers, occasionally 3. Again, they like to mix it up. We've already mentioned that they also play 3 safeties at a time as well. So this hybrid nickel formation that they like to run, it's going to be interesting, which is really good that we're relatively strong in that area, because we're getting, guys, just before we can move on, have you got any other thoughts on this linebacker before we move to the D line?
No, I'm good.
Because we need to crack on with this, because we don't like podcasts going over an hour, and we're close to it. Right, Andy, do you want to start us off with this D line? What is going on with this D line? We've got Quinnen Williams, Will McDonald, and then what have we got?
Yeah, I think this is where the misery sets in for me. I think when you look at a couple of years ago, the fact that the defensive line was the strength of this team, it's just we've got some stars, and then bugger all afterwards. I think I talked about it a bit last week. Having Will McDonald as a 3-down player is not where you want to be. I think you said it before this about this coaching staff put square pegs into square holes. I think Will McDonald as a 3-down player is not a fit at all. Seeing Michael Clemens' name, I'm glad it's only there because JJ's probably going to be eased in as the season goes on. But yeah, I don't want to see Michael Clemens on the field much. It's disappointing, I suppose, just from this. I know we take this with a pinch of salt, but seeing guys like Mulber and Page right down the depth chart compared to guys like Jay Tufele, Brian Cowart, Federian Mathis, I'd rather they gave a chance to guys with potential rather than guys that you know are not great. We've seen guys like that stick on the roster for a while, and Solomon Thomas, who we just needed to get rid of. It's finally happened. I don't fancy watching just whoever the replacement is they brought in for Thomas in that regard. I think, yeah, this isn't filling me with a lot of hope for the season.
No, on Clemens, at the back end of camp there, Aaron Glenn has been, I would say, raving about Clemens. He's just been saying that he's having a good camp and he's done really, really well, and this guy's getting better and all the rest of it. And I read that, and the first thing I thought was they're going to trade him. They're bigging him up to try and get a price tag on him. I think that he will get cut before the season starts. He's either going to get cut or he's going to get traded. I think they want to trade him. Derek Nardi, I don't think he's a lock to make the 53. Leonard Taylor III, I like a lot. Tyler Barron, we picked up this year in the draft. I think he will stick. Fatima Mulber, I also think will stick around as well. And Jay Tufele doesn't get enough love. And Rashad Weaver, apparently has been pulling up trees. He now wears 99, so maybe that's got something to do with it. Ryan, what are your thoughts on this crew? And obviously, with Jermaine Johnson's on the pup list, I think that Jermaine Johnson will be back for game 1, but I think he's ahead of schedule. But sorry, Ryan.
Yeah, look, we all feel the same about Clemens. I had high hopes from coming in. I think the reality is that he will fall down the depth chart once Jermaine Johnson is back, and I think there's guys like Braden McGregor who showed flashes last year, and so did Eric Watts. And they can definitely come in and put pressure in being the guy behind Jermaine Johnson. I've been hearing good things about Peyton Page this week. Like, he is quite low down this depth chart, but I don't think that's necessarily where he ends. I think that Byron Cowart is the front runner to be paired with Quinnen Williams at the moment. But I agree with you. I don't think Natty's a guarantee on this roster, and I think maybe somebody a bit younger with something a bit different to offer, like Peyton Page, who is he's not going to get you sacks, but if he can stop the run or draw a couple of bodies away from Q, then that's his role, and it means that Q can be a wrecking ball. Then great. But there are glaring weaknesses here. Will McDonald, I think, is going to be fantastic this year. I think he's added that weight, he's added that strength, and he's added a few different things to his game. And Rashad Weaver, like you say, he's having a decent little training camp at the moment. I think we'll see how he goes. I expect him to have quite a few snaps against the Packers in preseason. So I'm quite looking forward to seeing how he does. And I'd like to see Eric Watts and Leonard Taylor III out there as well as Peyton Page, and just see how they do in actual physical competition with another team. But yeah, I think Page would be the one I'd like to see just do a little bit, move a bit but further up that depth chart. Um, I was excited by Nadi at first because he just looked like this monster that could stop the run. But actually, the more you look at his history and everything else, you kind of realise that there's a reason that why he was available.
Yeah, you mentioned Will McDonald there. He's added that bulk. He's added something like about 20 pounds, and a report came out in, I think it was day 2 or day 3 on training camp. We was actually bull rushing Membu,
Yeah,
and it's something we haven't seen before. So, and they're saying that Will McDonald's spin move is just like almost unstoppable. Even Membu said it. It's like almost unstoppable. Okay, Membu's a rookie, but he's going to say nice things. But we've witnessed it firsthand in games. He is just. I know if you've only got one move and you become a bit of a one-trick pony, most opponents are going to be able to know what you're going to do and will be able to handle it. But the point is, it's such a good move, and he's such a good technician doing it. You know it's coming, and you still can't stop it. That is priceless. And now he's adding bull rushing as well. So I think interesting things. Whether or not, as Andy said, he can be a 3-down edge is another matter. It's going to be interesting. Keep an eye on Will McDonald. He is going to get double-digit sacks again, I'm sure of it.
I think Will McDonald is going to feast in the season opener. Broderick Jones will not know how to handle him, and Aaron Rodgers is going to get decimated by Will McDonald.
Yeah. Just before I forget as well, I think we have a scrimmage against the Giants next week as well, don't we?
Is that the mixed camp one?
Mixed camp. So that's, you know how that ends.
That's always going to be a fight.
There's going to be a fight. Maybe that's the last we see of Michael Clemens, because he seems to be one that likes to get involved in that kind of shenanigans. Guys, we've just got one little thing to do. Special teams. We had someone join us this week as well, an old favourite, a bit of a hero. You could say he's a folk hero.
Hey,
Got to get that in there. Nick Folk, he's back, Mr. Reliable, and on his first day kicking, he went 6 for 6. Bingo. But we've still got the thicker kicker, Harrison Meebis. He's still here, so it can be interesting to see. Punter, Austin McNamara, and the holder, Austin McNamara. So he's still here as well. He's a rookie, but listed on the punt return and kick return. This is where I think it's going to change, is Xavier Gibson on punt return and kick return. And I think this is where it gets interesting. When you look to see who's behind, on punt return, Jamal Pritchett, Arian Smith, and then on kick return, Kenny Nwangu and Jamal Pritchett and Arian Smith. Guys, who wants to take this? Ryan, is Xavier Gibson sticking on this roster?
I feel like a broken record saying I hope not. Look, I will say I really liked the story behind Xavier Gibson. I really liked him getting his chance, and I really liked him beating the Bills. But I think we've gone as far as we can with him. I think we've gone as far as we can with him. He started to make too many errors last year. He wasn't returning. He would have acres of space, and he would call a fair catch. And I just think that let's try something different. I would like to see, and Nwangu's going to be doing something. I think he's proven he can do it. So Nwangu's going to be there. I'd like to see the other guy being probably Arian Smith, because we know he's going to latch onto the roster 99% because he was a 4th round pick for us by this coaching team. But I do want to see more from Pritchett. Let's see how the preseason games go.
Yeah, I think Pritchett is going to stick. I hope he's going to stick. Again, I kind of, before the draft, ran into him by accident looking at somebody else, and he did stick out. Andy, Xavier Gibson, should he stay or should he go?
Similar to Ryan, it's one of those things where I just want him to go at this point. I think we've got enough on the roster for guys who, let's see if they've got anything else. I mean, because when you think about it, Gibson, he's not even a particularly an impressive returner outside that one return against the Bills.
Hmm.
I think he's muffed more than he's broken off big returns. So yeah, just get him out of it.
Yeah, I think he's going to dine off that one for the rest of his career. I think, with no disrespect to him, like you guys have said, it's been a good story and it's time to move on. Let's not forget as well, this team isn't expected to go to the playoffs this year. We very well might surprise people. We might all be surprised, everyone, and we might make a wild card. We might finish with a winning record. Any
Our
of
division
that,
could be awful as well.
our division could be awful. The Dolphins look absolutely decimated. What is going on down there? I think Daniels could be a candidate to get fired first. I don't think it would be his fault, but Dolphins are a hot mess. Let's finish this podcast by saying this. The last person on the depth chart, and he's the only one listed, long snapper, the longest tenured Jet, Thomas Hennessy. Congratulations, he's there again. Mr. Reliable. That's it, guys. This has been brilliant. We've got our first unofficial depth chart. We've just been through it all, albeit a little bit rushed, but so we're trying to get this under an hour, and we've just clicked an hour now. So we'll wrap this up, and we'll be back next week, and we'll be talking all things Jets. What is going to happen this week? Well, next week, God only knows. But it's fun. It's fun at the moment being a Jets fan, and we're all looking forward. I can smell football, guys. Can you smell the football?
I'm buzzing. I'm ready for it.
Good
Yeah.
stuff.
Y'all know what to say. On three. 1, 2, 3.